Hi, hey, hello, and welcome to another episode of a Colts podcast. My name's Brandon, and I'm joined here by your co-host, my best friend. And we're here brought to you by the Horseshoe Huddle and Fan Nation on SI.com. Still getting used to that one. That does not roll off the tongue as quickly yet. But we'll get there. But again, welcome, Andrew. How you doing? How you been? It's actually only been a week and 2 days since our last episode, but it feels like a lifetime ago. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Enjoying the weather. Thanks to Tom Brady for showing up again to a Colts podcast. Thanks to Michael for showing up. Welcome to the show. Doing well. It's been a good week as far as the Colts are concerned. They're deep into OTA'S. We've got some contract news to talk about today. We've got some updates on OTA'S, just how things are going down there for people that might not be privy to that information. So it's going to be a good episode. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm just, apparently a week and 2 days. I forgot how to produce a show. I'm doing all right though. Just got an offer accepted on a house.
Congrats.
Good for me and my fiance. I've had a hell of a 2 weeks. We'll just put it that way. I've had a hell of a 2 weeks. Things are looking up. Things are coming close to being in a close. Stats Matt in the car today. Don't YouTube comment and drive Stats Matt. It's irresponsible.
And not unless he's using Speak to comment.
Speak to comment, one of my favorite features of YouTube. I wish I could do Speak to broadcast. Working on that. YouTube for me. Thank you. All right, let's dive in. We're sounding like a bunch of idiots. Kenny Moore II, contract situation, Andrew. Currently holding out of OTA'S now. Was holding in at one point. But currently holding out of OTA'S due to displeasure with his current contract. This raised some hell on Colts Twitter and on Colts Facebook, all over Colts Nation here. A lot of combating opinions. And usually, Andrew, big fan of the billionaires, big fan of the league and the shield, finally siding with a player, finally, taking one of our guys' sides. We're a lot closer to these millionaire players than we are the billionaires. You know what I'm saying? So, Andrew, what's going on here? Let's start how it started, where we are now, and where we think it's going to go.
Man, you're just setting me up for a 10-minute rant right off the bat here. But
I'll make you take some.
let's get started of how we got here. So Kenny Moore II. Now, before I say anything about him holding out, we have to remember the OTA'S are 100% voluntary. And that's been echoed by Frank Reich these past couple weeks when he's been asked.
Holdout's not even the right word to use, really. He's just not there.
He's just not there participating in OTA'S because he is unhappy with his contract right now. Back when at the end of the 2018 season, Kenny Moore signed a 4-year, $33 million extension with $9 million guaranteed. And at the time, that was a pretty good contract because Kenny Moore, he'd only had one season under his belt where he played pretty well, but you wouldn't probably consider him the best slot corner in the game back in 2018. But since then, Kenny Moore has become one of the best defenders on the Colts defense. He's one of the most valuable people on this Colts team, period. And I think if you talk to most people around the league, there's a consensus that Kenny Moore is the best slot cornerback in the entire NFL. So when you look at his contract doesn't really reflect that because he's currently the 27th highest paid cornerback in the NFL. And when I was writing my piece about this last week, it's kind of astounding that two guys who have never played a down in the NFL, in Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner, two rookies that were taken in the top 5 of this past April's draft.
Yep.
They make more on a per year average than Kenny Moore does. That's pretty astounding. So when you look at that, that's why I think Kenny Moore is a little bit is wants a new contract. He wants to be paid how he's been playing. I mean, he's now a Pro Bowler. He is one of the top cornerbacks in this league, and he's shown that not just for 1 year. I think when I say I'm not really on board with paying a player or with players speaking out about being unhappy with their contract, it's because a lot of guys they'll have a really good 1 year and then they want to cash in right away.
Yeah.
With Kenny Moore, it's not just a 1 year thing. We've seen it for multiple years now. We've seen it pretty much every year since he signed that extension. So that is why we're at this point now where he sees where he ranks in the league and he wants to be paid at the caliber player that he is.
So Chris Ballard gave Kenny Moore a hell of a deal at the time. I mean, that was a hell of a deal for Kenny Moore at the time to get a long-term contract after his short amount of time playing. Let's not get crazy. Tyler saying he's guarding number 3 wide receivers.
Well, we could talk about that if we want. So I mean, just because you're in the slot doesn't mean you're guarding the number 3 wide receiver. I mean, guys like Cooper Kupp,
Hunter Renfrow,
Tyreek Hill, Hunter Renfrow, those 3 guys alone played most of their snaps from the slot. And Cooper Kupp won Offensive Player of the Year last year. So that's why just because you're in the slot, that doesn't mean the number 3 wide receiver is always in the slot. It's not how the NFL is anymore. The offenses are always trying to move these guys around. So when you say that just because you're in the slot, you're guarding number 3 wide receivers, when the Offensive Player of the Year, the guy that led the league in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns, played almost all of his snaps from the slot, you can't really say that. That's an outdated argument.
Well, it is a bit outdated, especially from a guy in Tyler here who is just raving about Tyreek Hill coming to join that football team. And he's going to be put all over the place there. And guys in the slot are going to have to guard Tyreek Hill. That's just the way it is. Now, again, back to how we got here. It was, he got a deal a little earlier than most players in his position do, I would say. Chris Ballard took a shot on him to be consistent. He believed he would be consistent, so he gave him that long-term deal. And Chris Ballard, I mean, he did his job too. He maintained a really good football player for a lot less money than if he would have waited a year or two to sign him. He'd have been signing a lot more money for Kenny Moore in that situation. So I don't think Kenny Moore's I don't know what we're looking for here, but I doubt he's asking for something absurd. I do think to get through the year, like Michael said in the comments, give him his money guaranteed this year. That would be meeting in the middle, at least for this year. Okay. Are you hearing that maybe that is something that could be a solution?
Well, I think we'll get to that because from what I'm hearing from the Colts, nothing is imminent. But
okay.
I think as far as the question goes, does Kenny Moore deserve a raise? Absolutely, he does. I really think he does. And you know me, if you guys watch the show, I'm not typically on the side of a player should get paid before his contract is up. Play out the contract. But when you look at all the details, when you look at how valuable Kenny Moore is, when you look at the statistics, Kenny Moore has been one of the top cornerbacks in tackles. In tackles for loss, in interceptions. Kenny Moore is up there in all those categories. And when you're being paid like a third string corner, or not, I wouldn't say a third string corner, I would say as one of the lower starting corners in the league, then yeah, absolutely. As Matt said, led corners and tackles, fourth in pass rushing corner, played 98% of the snaps.
98% of the snaps, that makes him the second most played player on the Colts defense behind Bobby Okereke.
All of those things, yes, I do believe that Kenny Moore should get a raise. Pay the man. I'm fully on Kenny Moore's side here, and normally I'm not, because again, I go back to what I said just a little bit ago. It's not like he had one big season and now he's demanding a huge contract raise. No, he's been doing it year after year, and he wants to be paid fairly. He's not looking for top cornerback money. He's not looking for 20 million a year like Jair Alexander, like
Mhm.
Jalen Ramsey. I honestly think if the Colts would offer him a deal that was around the 10 to 12 million a year. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is getting paid 10 million for the next couple of
Yeah.
years. You pay Kenny Moore to 10 to 12 million a
I think the
year,
Stephon Moore thing probably
that would get it done. That would get it done, I feel.
well,
But
I think that probably pushed Kenny like, okay, Xavier Rhodes was probably making more money than the last 2 years. Now he's like, okay, Stephon Gilmore comes in, he's making more money than him. That's not fun to do. Nobody's talking about those guys as the corner on our team, right? Even now, even Gilmore, I'm not. You're not. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little ridiculous. He's signed a 4-year, $33 million contract with $9 million guaranteed after the 2018 season. Not a bad amount of money,
right.
but for his caliber of play, just crazy. You mentioned the 27th highest paid corner. We both talked. We do believe he deserves a new contract. Now,
Well, real quick before we move on to will the Colts actually do it? I like Tyler, or I'm sorry, Kyle's comment here, and Kyle's talking about what some Colts fans were saying this week on social media, saying that he had 2 bad games to end the year, so why should the Colts pay him after that? So just because a player has 2 bad games, when you're talking about a guy who has consistently been one of the top players on this team for 3 years now, 2 games is going to ruin that. I think that's very short-sighted, number 1. And 2, if you're going to talk about that, I mean, Jonathan Taylor didn't have the best last game of the year.
right.
Darius Leonard didn't. DeForest Buckner didn't. And they're getting paid very, very well for their
Yeah.
position. That's just a poor argument.
Real quick on this too. They paid high up front, took a chance, and he outplayed it. I see both sides. That was Michael again. That's a good point too. They took a chance on him. They paid him, up front. It was a risky move. You know what I mean? It could have been a risky move. So I can't sit here and say I don't see both sides. I can't say that I don't see Chris Ballard saying, "Hey man, play out your contract this year, and we'll take care of you next year." And that's the biggest argument players have online, or players, teams, fans. There you go. Have online right now is, oh, you signed the contract, and as you have mentioned, as Matt I've seen mention in many comments and posts, and I believe Kenny Moore retweeted Matt today. Congratulations, Matt. Just basically like, okay, do you yell at the teams when they cut a player after they've given them a contract? No. Do we, there's a lot of situations where when roles are reversed, nobody has a problem with it. Doesn't make any sense. Why are we always siding with the billionaires in these situations?
It's all based on the situation, because if you're a guy like Kenny Moore who's outperformed your contract and has done it over multiple years and been very loyal to your team, yeah, I think you should get that. But if you're a guy that wants to be paid aggressively top dollar when number 1 you're not there, number 2 you've only played for 1 season at that high level, then no, your request I think is absurd. But from what I'm hearing now, the Colts do not have any intention of getting a new deal done with Kenny Moore. They feel like when he signed the deal at the time, it was very fair. And it's just something the Colts do not do. We haven't really seen under Chris Ballard him restructure these different contracts to really change up how much a player is paid based on their performance before their contract is done. Now,
Could we do an extension right now?
I mean, it's possible, but Kenny Moore still got 2 years left on his deal, so it's not like he's going to become an unrestricted free agent after this season.
Right.
But so and this is new territory, because really since Ballard and this regime took over in 2017, we haven't really had a player hold out or in a contract dispute yet. And so I think it's new territory for them. They probably don't want to set that precedent of renegotiating contracts before they're up, because they haven't done that yet. And the locker room is watching. Again, the locker room is always watching to see what's going to happen with these types of things. So if the Colts do this with Kenny Moore, what's to say they don't do it with Jonathan Taylor if he wanted to do it, or say Michael Pittman Jr. Some of these guys coming up that are going to have contract or are going to be up for contract extensions here in a couple years. So the Colts are in a tough spot. I don't think the Colts are disrespecting Kenny Moore at all. I think they absolutely love Kenny Moore. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out next week, because next week is mandatory minicamp, and if Kenny Moore does miss those days, the Colts could fine him up to $95,000 if he misses all 3 days. So or if he comes and actually shows up and is on the practice field, that won't matter. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week, whether Kenny Moore is on practice field or not, and whether the Colts decide to fine him or not if he does miss those days.
Yep, it's going to be interesting. I think we do something to appease him. We do something to, whether we know about it or not, whether it's a backdoor deal, or something along those lines. Like, hey, assurances, no promises. You can't, because that doesn't mean anything anyway. But it'll be interesting to see. Good.
Think so.
All right, that's the episode. I'm just kidding. Colts OTA'S update. So far, and we talk about this in training camp, let alone OTAs. We haven't had a chance to talk about this in OTAs because we haven't had a quarterback since we started the show, Andrew. Be at OTAs.
That's true.
No offseason program with Phil. Was there not? What was it with Carson last year? Injury.
The Colts did a very abbreviated version of OTAs last year, where they only had like a couple practices. Mm-hmm. Nothing like this year where they've completely ramped it up and have a full OTA session.
Right. So, but the rumble is Matt Ryan, big impact early, accuracy is great, quick release, presence at the line. Michael Pittman Jr. comments on those and demanding. Mo Cox comments. Those are things you like to hear from your players. But in something I told Tyler again, Tyler's the star of the show today. He was talking about Tyreek Hill saying, Tua, one of the prettiest balls he's ever caught. No shit. I mean, these guys are supposed to be saying these things about these guys, right? Mm-hmm. That's their quarterback. That's not to say they're not being honest. It is to say that Tyreek Hill's a liar. But it's you can't take it as the book,
Right. And a lot of this is coming from our colleague Jake Arthur, who has been at both open media sessions of OTA. So shout out to Jake. But as Stats Matt said, nothing better than seeing practice versus air highlights to get us going. And he's absolutely right. But hey, it's OTAs. It's the beginning of June. There's hardly anything to talk about. So we're going to talk about this a little bit of Colts football. It's always fun. But yeah, I mean, you hear from his teammates, and not only has Michael Pittman Jr. said it, but Nyheim Hines said this as well, just talking about his accuracy, that basically you turn around and the ball's there. There's no waiting for the football. It's this offense is going to be more timing based. Last year, Carson Wentz had to see the open player before he threw it. That's not how Matt Ryan does. Matt Ryan, he's a timing quarterback. He knows where it needs to go, when the ball needs to come out, and get the ball out quickly. So all these receivers, Pittman, Hines, Mo Cox even said it, that as soon as you turn, you better be ready, because the ball's going to be there quick, and it's going to be there right where you need it to be. So it's different. It's a different feel than what it was with Wentz. I've heard multiple people talk about how it feels like Andrew Luck is back in the building, is what Mo Cox said, just because of the way Matt Ryan is so demanding of his teammates. And that's not a bad thing. He's demanding it in a good way. He wants these guys to be prepared. Mo Cox said that when you pass Matt Ryan in the hallway, he'll stop teammates and he'll quiz them on a certain play, on where they're supposed to be, the route they're supposed to be running, wild. All those different things. And that's what Andrew did. It's what Phil did. You better believe Peyton Manning did that every single day in the facility. It's what I've been saying all spring. It's the grown up in the room. The quarterback needs to be at this intense level. He needs to be the guy that knows everything, be one that's holding everybody accountable. And when you talk about the things that Carson Wentz was missing last year, just not even talking about the stuff on the field. This is what was missing last year. The type of demanding
Leadership.
quarterback leadership that Phillip Rivers had, that
Leadership.
Andrew Luck had,
Period.
that Peyton Manning had.
That offense was missing leadership, all versions of it. Eli Manning was one version, and I would say maybe you could push Carson Wentz that direction. Just the quiet, non-verbal leader, but no.
How, as Wyatt Law says, get effing set from what Matt Ryan. How long till we're in a silent Lucas Oil Stadium and we hear Matt Ryan screaming that from the field?
Pittman, get effing set. He needs to do hilarious. Do you think Peyton Manning sent Jim Sorgi out on assignments in the hallways? Hey, I want you to go find these guys when they're not ready, and I want you to stop them, and I want you to quiz them on these plays.
I feel like Peyton Manning didn't trust Jim Sorgi to do that, but Peyton Manning did it himself.
I don't know. He trusted Jim Sorgi with a lot of stuff. Jim Sorgi was a professional backup quarterback for sure. All right. Nyheim Hines running drills with running backs and wide receivers. Oh, little hybrid Hines. Ooh, tag it. Trademark pending. Hybrid Hines. That's ours.
Hey, Frank Reich has said, I think this was last week. He said, if you play fantasy football, I'd suggest you draft Nyheim Hines this year. They're not even, you saw me tweet it, they're not even hiding how much they're going to get Nyheim Hines involved in this offense anymore. Hines is going to be in the backfield. He's going to be put in the slot. He's going to be put out wide. Nyheim Hines is going to be an everything type player in this offense this year. And I think Matt Ryan has taken a liking to Nyheim Hines very, very early. So it's not going to be where how it was last year, where Jonathan Taylor's out there for 75% of the plays. Nyheim Hines gets his little 25%, and then you hardly hear from him. Nyheim Hines is going to be a very vocal part of this offense this year. I would expect Nyheim Hines to be out there maybe close to 50% of all the snaps this year, with how much the Colts are utilizing him already in these OTAs, and how much they have continued to talk about him since last season ended, pretty much, as far as how involved he's going to be in the offense. They need to get the ball in his hands. I mean, it's just, if you need to listen to Frank Reich. If you play fantasy football, take Nyheim Hines pretty early in your drafts.
I love that. I love that a lot. Like Cordero Patterson with Ryan last year, as StatsMat says. Hashtag hybrid Hines. On board, Kyle Stewart. Thank you. Credit to the Colts podcast, guys. I mean, a little more specifically here, it's Kyle. I mean, so I love it. I mean, I'm interested to see. I want him on the field. I don't want Jonathan. If Jonathan Taylor's on the field, I don't want that to mean Nyheim Hines is off the field. You know what I mean? It's just a waste of talent. We are not talented enough in the playmaker department right now to take playmakers like Nyheim Hines off the field all the time just because the best running back in the league's on the field. He's more than that.
It was awesome seeing Jonathan Taylor run for 1,800 yards last year. I don't want to see that this year. I want to see a better passing offense, and I don't want the Colts to be so reliant on Jonathan Taylor that they're basically just running their star running back straight into the ground.
I want Jonathan Taylor to hit 1,800 yards because he's got huge opportunities, because our passing game is keeping defenses so off balance that when he does get to go to work, he takes off. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be a hard fought breaking 3 tackles a run to get there. I want him to have some free yards.
You don't want the 1,200 yards after contact that JT had last year.
Yeah, exactly. We're on the same page. Just got there in a different direction. Yeah. Paris Campbell and Ashton Doolin making plays. This is very similar to the news you heard last offseason, the offseason before that. Until I see Paris Campbell make it through 10 games in one season, not impressed. I agree. It is something to note, though, that Paris Campbell yesterday in the red zone period had 3 back-to-back touchdowns from Matt Ryan. Paris Campbell's looking good, and that's the thing. The talent's not the question with Paris Campbell. It's if he can stay healthy. Yep. And if he can,
as of right now, that slot role, that number 3 inside wide receiver, that's pretty much Paris Campbell's to lose at this point.
And plenty of high safety looks in Gus Bradley's defense. Explain to the fans, Andrew, what that means for that defense.
Yeah, so last year the Colts did a lot of double high safeties where you had, we'll use the starters, Julian Blackmon covering one side of the field, Kari Willis covering the other, kind of splitting the field in half. Gus Bradley, in his more cover 3 man match defense, uses a lot more single high safety where they have one deep safety that roams the entire deep part of the field and is that security blanket, allows them to roam around, make plays, and that's kind of what Julian Blackmon really excels at doing back there, is being able to really just kind of play with his instincts, make plays on the ball, things like that. And we knew this coming in, that this was probably going to be the case, and that's been confirmed with some of the looks they've had in 11-on-11s and OTAs.
All right. And plenty of that. Again, I'm reading the same thing. Bobby Okereke, Sterling Weatherford making plays at linebacker.
Bobby Okereke, I mean, it's good to see him still making plays. I want to see this continue now into the regular season, because if you remember last year in training camp, we talked about how Bobby Okereke was the star of training camp,
right?
And that he tapered off once the season came here. So you'd love to see, especially Okereke being, I think this will be his 3rd year now. Third year. No, this is Okereke's 4th year. So Okereke's in a contract year. So it'll be interesting to see how he can perform. But Sterling Weatherford, it was a guy that played safety in college, and he is one of the undrafted free agents that the Colts got this year. He's moved to linebacker, and he's been showing out. So Weatherford could push for a roster spot. He's one of the guys the Colts are very high on.
Yeah. In regards to Bobby, I wouldn't worry too much. Andrew doesn't mean that Bobby played bad football last year.
No.
You know what I mean? He wasn't causing the turnover. You know, there were a lot of turnovers going on last year, and I don't know how many of those he caused.
I mean, Okereke, he still led the team in tackles, so it's not like he played a piss poor season, but it was a step back from all the plays he was making in training camp.
Right. And Sterling Weatherford, undrafted free agent, could be one of those guys we look at and see make the team.
Mm-hmm.
Get that streak going again. That'd be pretty cool. And we're getting there, Stats Matt. No patience out of that guy. Fierce battle between Isaiah Rodgers and Brandon Faison for right corner. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this OTAs has actually been an opportunity for both of these guys, because I mean, Kenny Moore's holding out. When we talk about Stephon Gilmore has been in there, but he hasn't been in there for like the 7-on-7 drills. He's more just going through the walkthroughs and 11-on-11. So when you're in these 7-on-7 type situations, it's giving guys like Isaiah Rodgers and Brandon Faison, they're out there being the 2 top cornerbacks. And with these guys in a battle for that starting right cornerback spot opposite of Gilmore, we know Kenny Moore is going to be in the slot. These guys are really going to be battling it out all summer, all training camp. It's going to be interesting to see. And the thing is, both of them have been making plays in OTAs. So both of them are bringing a fight. We knew Isaiah Rodgers would, because he's an absolute dog. Right. Brandon Faison has starting experience, started 9 games last year with the Raiders, and knows this Gus Bradley defense. So for them to be playing well this early, that's, I think, is just going to continue into training camp, and the competition is just going to make those 2 better. So it's good to see early.
You think either one of those guys could give us a little depth in the slot corner department if, say, Kenny were to actually hold out for the season, or say he gets injured, God help us? Do you think either one of those guys fit that position, that role very well?
I'd say probably Isaiah Rodgers a little bit more than Brandon Faison, because Brandon Faison is a bigger corner. I think he's over 6 foot, 200 pounds. Isaiah Rodgers is more of a smaller guy, more has more twitchiness in his game. I could see Rodgers doing that if it has to come to that.
That's the one I would have thought. And last but not least, Julian Blackmon returns. Good to hear that. But Darius Leonard has been out. Let's start with Blackmon.
Blackman's looking good. He's participated in defensive back drills. He didn't do 7-on-7 work, but he was in the walkthrough for 11-on-11. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Blackman comes back at the start of training camp and has no restrictions on that Achilles, which is phenomenal to hear
Crazy.
for the Colts. Because if it's almost, if I had to put money on it, I'd say Blackman starts week 1 in Houston, because that's how well he's doing with his recovery. That's how well he looks right now. As long as there's no setbacks, Blackman will be the starting deep safety for the Colts week 1. It's pretty crazy to see, considering how his Achilles popped like it did.
You love to see it. Darius Leonard out. Saw you write an article today, Andrew, on this issue. Darius Leonard ankle still bothering him. He just told us recently he feels that this is the best he's felt going into an offseason. What the hell's going on?
He said the ankle, like he said all year in 2021, he said the ankle's attached. And that's what he's been saying this spring. So he said it does feel better than it did at the end of the season, which is good, because as the season went along, we saw that ankle feeling better and better. And the Colts did say that they're being overly cautious with Leonard because, again, it's June. Darius Leonard usually doesn't doesn't show up and come to OTA'S. He usually trains on his own. So they are being cautious with it. But the thing is, we're coming up on a year since that surgery that he had. That was supposed to be a minor surgery, and he was supposed to be fully healed for training camp. Well, it's a year, and he's still dealing with it. So do I think the Colts need to panic over this? No, I don't. But it is something to monitor as the summer goes along. And if Darius isn't 100% and ready to go when training camp starts, then I'm thinking like something needs to be done here, because obviously the rest of rehab just isn't working. And while the Colts haven't
Last thing
really
I heard out of him was somebody asked, like, do you think maybe you'll have some more surgery, scrape some more stuff, scar tissue, yada yada. He said, I hope not. But he didn't say no.
Reich said this week, and that's what I was kind of getting at. Reich said this week that they haven't even discussed a second surgery yet. So if that's good, because they obviously think that he can still get over it and get this behind him with just rest and continued rehab. But it is still a little bit worrying to see that this has dragged on for this long, since it's been almost a year now.
All right. Other Colts news, and then we'll move along to news around the league. The Colts are expected to promote Director of College Scouting Morocco Brown to Chief Personnel Executive. What additional responsibilities for Morocco here, Andrew? What does this change for him?
So basically, I think it just puts Morocco Brown as third in command behind Chris Ballard and behind Ed Dodds, and Morocco Brown, I mean, he interviewed with the Bears this offseason for their GM spot. Mm-hmm. He interviewed with the Eagles, which would have been practically the assistant GM spot with them. So Morocco Brown's been in high demand. So it's a good way for the Colts to take care of him, move him up, and a well-deserved probably pay raise, a title raise from director of college scouting. I hear that there's a promotion for Jamie Moore, one of the regional scouts, in the works. So the Colts are doing a very good job with these guys in the building, and they want to try to keep them as long as possible. Now, do I think Morocco Brown will be a GM someday? Absolutely. But for the time being, he's done such a phenomenal job in the front office. You want to reward those guys. So I think it's a great move by Ballard and the Colts.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was well-deserved, which obviously that's going to cause some, trickle effect. There's going to be other motion on the backside of that deal. Former Colts running back Frank Gore, boy, this one's going to choke you up, is signing a one-day contract with the 49ers to announce his retirement. He's the third all-time leading rusher. Good for him.
16,000 career rushing yards, 9 seasons over 1,000-yard rushings, and this guy tore his ACL twice in college, was a third-round pick of the 49ers, was just supposed to be a backup running back, didn't think he'd really do anything, and the guy goes out there, works his tail off, one of the hardest workers, one of the toughest people in the entire NFL, and goes on to a Hall of Fame career. He wasn't in Indianapolis for long. Colts didn't really have much success when he was here, but he became a fan favorite very, very quickly. So congrats to Frank Gore. Hell of a career.
Yeah, my brother had a Frank Gore jersey. I was super stoked to get Frank Gore. He was always one of my favorite running backs. Just for our age group, my age group growing up, he was one of those guys. You know what I mean? So a lot of fun to watch. Hard runner, just a badass. Wish he was retiring in the white and blue.
Yeah,
in my dreams. But yeah, it was awesome. So good for him.
The thing about Frank Gore too is he could have a future as a talent evaluator. Chris Ballard has talked about potentially. We'll get there. I'm not sure if I added it to the. Yeah, I did. We'll get there in news around the league, but back on my point. Chris Ballard has talked about possibly hiring Frank Gore in the future as a talent evaluator because of how detailed he is in dissecting players and their abilities. So that would be a great addition to the Colts front office there.
All right, let's move it along to news around the league. Andrew, the Browns cornerback Deshaun Watson facing 2 more civil lawsuits over alleged sexual misconduct, bringing the total at 24. I thought the number was done growing. It just keeps going. Just keeps going.
The NFL has said that they're almost done with their investigation. I don't know. It's still a mess, and it's going to be a mess until all these civil suits are resolved, till the NFL comes down with their ruling on everything. It's just a mess all around, and it's not. I feel like it's not going away anytime soon.
I don't think so at this point. Browns and tight end David Njoku agreed to a 4-year, $56.75 million extension. Good for David Njoku. And until Deshaun Watson's back, don't sign him on your fantasy football team.
Jacoby Brissett would be the one that's throwing to it right now, unless Baker Mayfield.
Still on the roster.
Still on the roster. But yeah, good for David Njoku. I don't think he's been used properly in Cleveland yet. I think this more is a contract on his potential as well, because I think David Njoku has the talent to be one of the top tight ends in the NFL.
As if the Bears defensive line not the Bears defensive line, but the Bucs defensive line wasn't good enough. They've signed Bears defensive lineman Hakeem Nicks.
Hakeem Hicks, not Hicks. Yeah, you get it.
Did I say Hakeem Nicks?
You said Hakeem Nicks, old Giants Colts wide receiver. Hey, we're almost done with the show, brother. But yeah, Hakeem Hicks, phenomenal defensive lineman. You pair him next to Vita Vea, man. The Bucs just keep getting better. The rich get richer, I guess. But I feel like that kind of signifies that Ndamukong Suh will not be back with the Buccaneers next year.
Yeah, that's it right there. Steelers promote former VP of football and business administration Omar Khan to be their next GM. Did we talk about this? Are we sure we didn't already talk about this?
This happened last Wednesday, the day after our episode. But the Steelers famously keep hiring from within, and this is, the Steelers' job. Ed Dodds interviewed for it, Barack O'Brien interviewed for it, but they end up going with Omar Khan, who's been there for quite some time. So congrats to him. The Steelers always seem to promote from within, and it's, they've had plenty of success doing that so far.
Wyatt, I'm going to opt to stay out of that. Just going to stay out of that one. But probably. Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick retires after 17 seasons with 9 teams. Now, that's a hell of a football player, hell of a beard. I think he should probably go into the Hall of Fame.
Tom Brady, just get out of here. He's happy about the Hakeem Hicks news.
I'm starting to wonder if that's one of my little sister-in-laws.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think he has more passing yards and more passing touchdowns than Steve Young and Troy Aikman, which is pretty wild to think about. A 7th-round pick out of Harvard, but hell of a career for Fitzmagic. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but hell of a story.
9 teams?
I saw somebody tweet that
he started for 9 teams at quarterback. There's no way there's another quarterback that's done that.
The other 23 teams should just sign him to one-day deals so he could be on every single team.
That would be absolutely incredible. I was hoping the Colts would be a landing spot for him this year. Instead, we got that big swanging Nicholas. Center Alex Mack retires after 13 seasons with the Browns, Falcons, and 49ers. A lot of retiring going on.
One of the best centers, I think, of the last 13 seasons. He was always a Pro Bowler, an all-pro center in his time in the league, made it to a Super Bowl with the Falcons. I'm not sure. He might have made it to the Super Bowl with the 49ers. I'm not sure on that. But yeah, Alex Mack, hell of a career as well. I think he has a chance to be a Hall of Famer.
All right. And Steelers defensive lineman Stephon Tuitt retires after 8 seasons. I'm done clapping. My God.
So this one was kind of a shocker. I mean, Tuitt's only 29 years old, but he said in his announcement that after what happened last year, his brother was killed, and along with the injuries, he on top of getting his degree from Notre Dame, he feels like there are other things that he needs to be doing besides football. So congrats to him for going out on his own terms. He was a hell of a player when he was healthy.
Yeah, I know how it feels. Steelers fans lose somebody important to you after 8 seasons. I'm familiar. I'm familiar.
Let's not bring him up.
Come on, I want to get the comments stirring. I want to get things going in here. Some sad news. No more happy news here. Cardinals corner Jeff Gladney has died at the age of 25 after being involved in a car accident in Dallas on Monday morning. I remember talking about Jeff Gladney in our first offseason and draft preview. Andrew, we were looking at him as a possibility to be drafted by the Colts. So that's a name I probably wouldn't have even known had we not done this show. So sad to hear that news. It sucks getting to an age where you start seeing people die before, younger than you. That's not fun at all.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. I think both him and his girlfriend passed away. She was in the car as well. Very, very sad news. I mean, his NFL career didn't get off to the best start. I mean, but he was looking to restart his career in Arizona, and he was a good young kid. He was a kid that when you watched him on the field, you couldn't knock him for his effort. It just sometimes plays didn't go his way. But yeah, terrible news to hear about Jeff Gladney.
Also, former running back for the Cowboys, Marion Barber, passed away this week at the age of 38.
Yeah, that one. You remember Marion Barber being a bruising running back for the Cowboys for multiple years there in the 2000s with Tony Romo. So again, a guy gone way too soon.
And this is I saw the teaser for this next piece of news here, and I didn't click on it. I saw look at the new cover for Madden, and I didn't click on it. I was like, I'm sure it'll pop up on Twitter later. The late John Madden will grace the cover of the Madden 23 video game for the first time since 2000. And I think that is really cool.
That's badass. That one deserves a round of applause there for John Madden.
Yeah, what? That's a good.
I might buy the game this year. It's been
just to have that case, huh?
It's been a few years since I bought the game. Well, I'll buy it on Steam.
I saw some now, but stuff on Instagram today. Huge changes to Madden. YouTube, when I pulled up YouTube to start doing stuff for the show, huge changes to Madden 23. 3 different versions too. They dumb it down for you folks who are too broke to buy a new console. You know what I'm saying?
or build a gaming PC.
Yeah,
you should get a PC, Brandon. Hop on over to the good side.
I've got one. It's for work. One last thing too, before we move it to the end and give you guys your homework assignment. Not in the outline here. However, we do want to throw out some T's and P's to the victims and families of those affected in the shooting in Texas, as well as yesterday in Tulsa. Shit sucks. Stop shooting people. Go see a therapist instead.
Terrible news. Just terrible. Yeah, definitely thoughts and prayers with all of them. It's when you think about think about those lives lost and especially the parents that lost those little kids. With my fiance, my future wife, being a kindergarten teacher as well. It's scary. It really is scary. So
and this Tulsa one was a hospital, right?
It was. So
I was going after a doctor. Might have grabbed a nurse while he was at it, in regards to mine. That's all I could think about in regards to that one. So, yeah, thoughts and prayers. Stop shooting people.
Do better, people.
Just be better. All right, and let's shift it off of that. Make sure to go follow us at a Colts Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and maybe now the interns are working.
We got them working?
We got them working a little bit. Thought I was going to have to fire them day one because nobody's responding to me. I'm like, what's going on here? I need you guys to do some stuff. Paying you money. Real. No, I'm not. No, I'm not, IRS. Paying you guys money to, do some of this stuff. So maybe TikTok soon. We'll start posting reels, start posting shorts on YouTube. We'll see.
Love to see it.
We do have a pretty bad setup for them to make like TikToks. It's gonna be a very confusing situation for them. But hey, that's why I'm hiring them. They're supposed to figure these things out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mom. Anything else, Andrew?
Mandatory minicamp next week for the Colts. So we're going to have plenty of news on that. And then the Colts will be off until training camp in July. Exciting times.
Well, maybe vacation in our future. But until next time, go Colts.
Go Colts.
Let this moment become a cherished memory. And then remember, a legacy is only worthwhile when there is a future to fuel. God bless you, and God bless football.